Okay, welcome back everyone. I hope I'm audible. I was just checking my settings here and I'm not even sure if I'm properly audible. Just give me a sec. And okay, it looks like I'm audible. And okay, so let's get started. So I hope you enjoyed the first session. So basically, in the first session, what we did is we worked with the core part of the programming, which is Java, and then we have seen so many concepts. I hope you remember all of them. So in this video, or in this live, we'll go forward with whatever we have learned till now. And if you can see the topic name, it says beyond uh, beyond the basics, right? So let's get started. I'm not sure if I'm in the right stream here on Streamcast. Just give me a setting. It takes actually a lot of time to configure everything to get started, and so many people are watching this. Okay, so by the time you are doing this, I have a poll for you. So let me share my screen, or let me share a poll with you, and just a second. So I have a poll here, which is your favorite language? Okay, so let me just share the poll with you in the chat window. So if you can see in the chat window, you will find a link. So by the time I do my setup, just what's wrong? Why I'm not able to copy paste it? Okay, now I can. Okay, let me know if you can hear me. Okay, it's a poll. So answer this poll, which is your favorite language, and I will also share the result in some time. And by the time you enter that, so let me show you the results. You can see on my screen, and this should be fun. Let me also know if you're able to select only one language or multiple languages. Since I'm using this poll software for the first time, so I'm actually not sure how it will look like. Yeah. Okay. Um, Cool. Everything seems good. It's just that I have not opened my whiteboard, which I need to get ready with. Okay, so you can select multiple languages, right? That's great. That's great. Okay, so as the poll result says, again, Java is top. You know why we got Java here as a top favorite language? Because this is a Java session, and of course, everyone wants to learn Java, so they're selecting Java here. So we already got 400 votes, and maximum selecting Java here. Some of them are selecting Python, 31%, JavaScript 15. It's not that JavaScript is not famous. This channel is not that famous for JavaScript, right? So Cisco is known for Java and Python, but soon we'll be having enough audience who knows JavaScript. So basically, this is a platform. This is a channel where you can get all type of audience: Java, Python, JavaScript. I don't have course on PHP, but we do have Kotlin. Golang is new. I have some videos on Golang, and some of okay. I've not started with Rust yet, but let's see. Cool. So that was our poll, and let me open IntelliJ. So just to revise what we have done in the first session. So basically, I have a whiteboard here. This is what we were discussing from the morning. So basically, we have talked about what is Java. So we know Java is a programming language using which you can build amazing applications, right? You can build mobile application, enterprise application, um, desktop applications, right? But then it is more famous in the enterprise world. Now, it doesn't matter which company you go for the interviews, they will ask you a question based on Java. That's the choice they take. Next, which software we are going to use to write a code? We are using IntelliJ here. Of course, you can use VS Code, you can use Eclipse and NetBeans. I was working on Eclipse a lot. In fact, the framework which I use for Java is Spring framework. Maybe someday we can do a live session on Spring. So for Spring, there's a special software called STS, which stands for Spring Tool Suite. Now it is based on Eclipse. So Eclipse is highly used IDE for Java developers. But then when it comes to the paid version, the IntelliJ paid version, which is IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate, it's actually ultimate software. You can use that, and it's good. But then we are using a free version because we don't want to pay for it now. Okay, so that's what we have done in the first session, right? We have talked about what is Java and stuff. Then we moved towards how Java works. Okay, so I don't know if you can actually understand what we did in the first session, but if you get enough time, please go back and revise that. So basically, the first code which we wrote is hello world, and then we said we talked about how your Java codes get converted from the actual source code to a bytecode, right? This is how your code gets converted from source code to bytecode, and the extension for that is .class file. Then Java is get Java gets compiled first, and then the bytecode gets interpreted. That's what we have talked about. And okay, then we took a break. So every time, after every 50 minutes, we'll take a break. So that's a 10 minutes break. We have taken 3 times, or I guess 2 times. Okay, then we have talked about variables. Now, variable is something where you store data, right? So in variables, you store data. Variable needs a name as well. And in Java, variables are strictly typed, which means if you want to get a variable, you have to make sure that you mention the type of it. And we have done that, right? So we have mentioned the type. Example, if we have int, we have float, we have double, we have short, we have byte, we have long. So we have so many data types available. And so if you by default, if by chance, if you're coming from, let's say, uh, JavaScript, in JavaScript we don't mention the type, right? But in Java we have to do that. Okay, then we have talked about operators, we have talked about arithmetic operators, we have talked about logical operators, right? We have seen and or not. And then we have seen something called conditions, conditional statement like if else, ternary operator. And then we moved towards loops. Loop is not mentioned. So we have talked about loops as well. So we have talked about while loop, then we have talked about do while loop, and then we have talked about for loop, right? This is what we have done in the first session. Okay, so we have talked about this stuff as well, and then we started with something called arrays, right? And we know what is array. So basically, whenever you have multiple values to store, we can store that in an array format. So this is an array format here, right? Okay, so let's continue with array itself. But before going ahead, we have so someone said that videos are better than live. It's actually very subjective, you know. Some people love videos, some people love live. It depends how you want to learn. The ultimate aim is to learn. It may be books, it may be videos, it may be self-learning from documentation, it may be live sessions. So I'm just trying to give you different ways of learning. You can choose if you want videos available, if you want live sessions, I'm doing that. So your choice again. But some people prefer live, and that's what I've observed. Okay, cool. So let's get started. So let's talk about the arrays. I guess this is what we were doing, right? Let me just go full screen. So okay, so let's get started. So let's talk about arrays. Now, in fact, we have created an array here. So if you can see, we have an integer array, which is marks, and then we have all these values here, right? Now we can print each value, and then we have also seen if you try to print a value which is not there. Example, the size of this array is only 4, and then you're trying to print the 6th value. Now I know you'll be saying, hey, we are saying 5 here, and then where you got the 6th value. See, the index number starts from 0, right? So the 5th, so 5 here represents a 6th value. Okay, and I forgot to start the what do you say, slow mode. Give me a second. I will just enable the slow mode here. I should have done that before. Okay, just a second. I'm enabling slow mode so that I can actually see the comment section. The problem is the comments go up so fast. Okay, it's not loading actually on my machine. Something is wrong. Yep. And slow mode enable. Cool. Slow mode done, and let's get started. So this is what we have done we have done, right? So let me print 3, and it should print the output which we want. So let's run this code, and here we go, run. And you can see we got the output which is 7, and this is what we are expecting earlier. Let me just make it big so that you can see it. Okay, cool. Now what we'll do is, instead of printing this only once, I want to print this. I want to print all the elements. How do I print all the elements? Because if you look at this statement, it is printing only one, right? So there's one way you can print 0, then you can print the first value. You can say marks of 1, and then likewise you can continue till 4. I mean 3, right? It will work. Uh, but then we don't want to repeat the statements. But remember, never repeat the statements. It's a crime, and we are not criminals, so let's not do that. So instead of using this, we will be using a for loop. So we can use a for loop so that we can write the index number from 0, and we can end it where. Now the question is, where should I end it? So write that in the chat window. Should I end it at 5 or 4 or 3? Okay, so that I will write 4 here. But you will think, hey, we don't have the index number 4, right? We have index number 3 only. But if you can see, I'm not saying less than equal to, I'm just saying less than. So it will stop at 3, and then I plus plus, and we'll put that in a for loop. Just a second. Okay, so I'm not using curly brackets here, because if you only have one statement, curly brackets are not required. Okay, let's try this. Let's run this code and see what happens. So if you run this code, and you can see we got 555. Oh, that's weird. We are only getting 5. What's wrong? Any guess what went wrong here? Okay, so the problem here is we are saying marks of 0, right? It should not be marks of 0. It should be marks of I. Cool. So now if you run this code, we can see we'll get all the values. Okay. Now I don't want to do this. I don't want to mention 4 here. The problem is you are sticking to the size of the array, right? You're saying 4 here. But what if you don't know the size of the array? And most of the cases, actually, we don't know the size of the array. So in that case, what we can do is, instead of saying 4, we can say marks dot length. Now what is length here? So length is a property belongs to an array. This length will give you the size of the array. Okay, and now once you do that, let's run this code. Okay, someone says, are you okay? Yeah, I'm completely okay. It's just that I'm speaking for after a long time for 4 hours. This is the 4th hour where I'm teaching, so there's some issue, but I'm good. Okay, so we got the output, right? We got all the values. This is what we can do. In fact, we can create. We have one more option. Instead of using a for loop like this, the problem here is the for loop. You have to do the starting point. You have to find the length, and then you have to go to each element and fetch the value. To enhance this, we have another loop called as for each loop. Now, for each loop is what? So we can use a for here. See, what we are doing is we are referring to the index values, right? So instead of using an index value, we can actually fetch the element. So I can say num, int num from marks. And let me print num. Now, if you can compare these two syntax, they are different. Now, how they are different is, in this case, we are using each element. So in this case, we are using each index number to fetch the value. But in this case, what we are doing is we are saying, hey, Marks, give me each value one by one. So first we'll fetch the first value, then second value, then third value, then fourth value. So it will fetch the first value. The first value will go to num, and then it will print num. The second value will go to num. Yeah, that's right. Someone mentioned it is actually called the enhanced for loop, right? But in the other languages, we call for each, so we can refer that. But yeah, technically it is called enhanced for loop. This is from uh, yeah, Smardnika. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Now, this is called enhanced for loop. So here we are using index number to fetch the value, but here we are using num as a variable. Now, is it declared? Yes, we are saying int num, right? So we are declaring it here itself. And now let's run this code, and you can see we'll get the same output. Cool. It only works for collections. I mean, arrays and collections. Okay, good. Let's continue. Now we can also use two-dimensional arrays here. So we have one-dimensional here, right? We can also have two-dimensional. But even before two-dimensional, what if you want to fetch the value from the user? Any guess? So by the time I make the changes here, write the answer in the comment in the chat window. How do you take the input from the user? Okay, so what I will do is I will just remove this. So to take the input from the user, we can use a special class called scanner. So scanner is a class available in Java. So you can see it belongs to a package. Okay, now we have not talked about package and classes yet. So we'll talk about what is package, what is class in this session itself. Don't worry. So is a scanner equal to new scanner? And in this, you have to pass an object. Which object you have to pass? The system.in. Okay. Again, we'll talk about what is scanner, what is a class basically later. But as of now, just remove this. You can use scanner class or you can use scanner object to fetch the value. Now, once you got a scanner object, let's get the input from the user. So we'll ask the user, or let's not ask the user. Let's say the first value will be coming from the user. So sc dot. Now, how do you get the value? So you can say next int. Now, scanner has so many methods for different type of input. For integer, we say next int. For float, we say next float. For character, we say next char. So we have all this option here. We can also say xc.nextInt, and everywhere we can do that. But don't you think we are doing this step multiple times? And whenever you have something repeatedly, the best option is use a loop. So once you declare it here, okay, yeah. So change the banner to user input. Yeah, I should have done that, but I don't have a banner which says user input. So in the break time, I will do that. I will add some extra banners. I'm running out of, or maybe I can say that user input because this will be helpful later, right? Just done that. Thank you so much. Okay. So yeah, again, we'll talk about this new keyword later. We can't just we can't just do everything in this thing, right? Okay. So once we got this loop, once we got this, where's the loop? We have not defined a loop yet. So let's create a loop for taking the input from the user. Now, should I use a for each loop? Not exactly, because we want to go for the index numbers. So normal for loop makes sense in this case. I will say int I equal to 0. In fact, we can remove this part. Int I equal to 0, and then we'll say I less than, we can again go for marks.length, and we can say I plus plus. Now we can assign the value. We can say marks of I, because we have to go in iteration, right? It will first fetch the value of the first one, the second one. So let's assign the value. So we'll say sc dot next int. Cool. Let's run this code and let's see what happens. The moment you run this code, okay, yeah. So you can say nothing is happening. There's nothing on the screen. The problem is the this thing is actually waiting for our input. Now, how do you provide the input here? You have to say you have to actually say 7. So that's your first input. 9 second input. Whatever your value you want to insert, your choice. So you can see we have entered 4 values and you got 4 values. But the problem is, how would anyone knows what is a? I mean, as a user, you have to enter the value. So what you should have done is before even fetching the value, you could have said here enter 4 values, right? So it's always better to ask a user because for any application, the users are dumb people. Okay, so if you are using an application, you're dumb. If I'm using an application as a user, I'm dumb. Okay, so as a developer, it's your responsibility to guide your user. So that's great. A lot of people are watching this. So if you are enjoying the live session, I want to do more live sessions in the future. So if you're enjoying this, hit that like button. That's the motivation, everyone. So after every 45 minutes, I will take your doubt. I will take your doubts and for 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes we have a break. Don't worry. So hit that like button if you're enjoying this. Cool. So yeah, so we can take the input from the user and we can run this, and the same thing will work. Let's assign the values 8, 2, 3, and 5, and you can see we got the values, right? In fact, you can do something more here. So if you want the assignment, what you can do is take all the values from the user and find the average of all the values. Let me repeat the question. Take 5 values from the user and find the average of those 5 values. Cool. So once you know how to use single dimensional array, now this is single dimensional because if you can see, this is our array here, right? This is a single dimensional array. But we can also have a multi-dimensional array. Example, we can have a box and we can have some sections. So this is multi-dimensional array, and the size of this array is 3 by 3, right? So this is index number 0, index number 1, index number 2. This is index number 0, 1, 2, right? So this is how you define a multi-dimensional array. Okay, so how do you assign the value? So in fact, you can actually call this as a 2D array because we have 2-dimensional. We can also go for 3D array. That's your choice. But let's say I want to assign a value. See, if you want to assign a value here at this location, you can say 1, right? 1 represents this location. But what about if I want to assign a value here? I want to assign a value which is 5. What is the location of this 5? Okay, let me just make it full screen. Yeah, so what's the location of this 5? This location is actually 0, 1. What about this location? If I want to store a value, it says 6. So this location is 2, 2. What about this location here? This is 1, 0. What about this location here? This is 1, 2, right? This is how you work with it. Okay, so let me just create a 3 by 3 array and let me assign some values. The way you can do that is, let's go back and let me create a 2-dimensional array. Now this time, let's not take the input from the user. Let's do something else. Let's generate random numbers. First of all, I want to create a 2-dimensional array, and I will name this array as, let's say, matrix. Okay, matrix. And I'm sure you might have learned matrix in your math subject. I know no one loved it. It was one of my favorite topic. Okay, so let me create a matrix here, and this will be a 2-dimensional array. Now, how do you mention 2-dimensional array? So you have to use 2 square bracket, and you have to say new int, and again 2 square bracket. And in each box, you have to mention the size of it. Size would be 2, 2. Oh, sorry, size would be 3, 3 because we are creating an array of 3 by 3. Okay, cool. Now, once you got this, how do I get the random values? That's a question now. Okay, random values. This will be tricky. How do I get the random values? Now, for that, you have a class called as random. I hope this is the right class. So it's a random equal to new random. Now, once you got this class, I guess you have to pass value here. As I mentioned before, it's been a long time I have worked on Java. Okay, you have to mention the seed value, max value. So this seed, that's how you learn. Okay, in Java, if you want to know about a class and the limit, because see, I want to go for random values, but there should be a limit of how long you want your random number to be. Okay. Next bit, random bits, and okay. Okay, let's try. Let's try. So let me just go with random. And how do I get the next value? And every time I get a next value, I want to assign to an array here. So what we can do is we can create, we can really use a for loop here. But since we have two-dimensional array, how can you work with single for loop? Because see, if you go back to your image here, if I recreate this box, I hope I'm good with designs, creating a box. Yeah, okay. I love this software, not this one. I should have kept this cross. Okay, so why I'm creating a cross line? Oh, I'm so bad. I'm so bad at this. Okay, something is going wrong. I'm not able to use my sketchboard properly. Okay, imagine this is a box here. We got 3 by 3, right? Now I want to refer to this particular row. So initially you will refer to rows, right? This is the zeroth row. This is first row. This is second row. But then we also have columns. We got 0, 1, 2, right? So we need one variable, let's say I, to represent row, and then we need another variable j, which will represent the columns, right? Now for this, you have to use a nested for loop. Now how do I do that? So we have to say I equal to 0, which will count the number of rows we have, which is 3 in this case, and we'll say I plus plus. Then we have another for loop for, and this will be j equal to 0, j less than 3, and j plus plus. And let's assign the values. I will say matrix of what? Matrix of I and j equal to the value which you have to assign here is it will be random value. To get the random value, you will say random dot next int. It will give you any random value which will be assigned to this matrix. And now once you have your random values, let's print it. We'll not be performing any operation, but let's print it. So okay, well, what should I use now? I will use okay. First of all, let me just try with normal for loop, and then we'll see how can we use enhanced for loop here. So I will say int j equal to 0, j less than 3, and j plus plus. And let's print I. Okay, let's print matrix I of j. Okay, let's try this. Let's see what happens. The moment you run this code, oh, so we got so many values. The only problem is they are very long. They are very big numbers. We can actually set the value. We can set the bound, upper bound. I don't recall is that upper bound. You have to mention it here, or let's try. Yeah, that's right. So we can set the upper bound. So what we are doing is when we say next int, mention 9 inside this. Now, by doing that, what we are saying is, hey, don't take a random value which is bigger than 9. And that's why you can see we have all the values in the limited range. Cool. Okay, now what we will do next? Okay, so but then we don't want to print in this format, right? We want to print that in a box format. How will I use box? So what we can do here is we can remove the print ln. So we can remove, when you remove ln, it will print everything on the same line. Oh, we don't want on same line. We want 3 by 3, right? So this is responsible to print the entire row, one row. So we can use a new line after that, and let's also give a space between the numbers. It should make sense. And you can see we got the values. We got 2, 6, 8. So and every time you run this, you will get a different number. Now the assignment question for you. You need to take two matrices, let's say matrix 1 or matrix 2, and then you have to add those two matrices. That will be assignment. Okay, how do you add two matrices? Adding two matrices. That is your assignment. Okay, cool. So that's how we can use random. Okay, now once we talked about random, once we talk about this thing, what's the next thing we can do? Let's jump towards objects. Let's move towards oops. Is there anything we left with in between? Yeah. Let's talk about oops. Okay, now in OOP, we are going to start with a concept called class and object. Okay, so let's start with class and object. Now, first of all, why do we need a concept like classes and objects in first place? So to understand that, let's go back to our whiteboard. This is not a whiteboard. This is actually a green board, but the software name is whiteboard. If you want to try it out, this is amazing. Okay, this thing. The only thing is you need an external pad and a pen. Okay, anyway, so let's do this. See, in the real world, everything is object, right? So, example, if we talk about a car, if we talk about a mobile phone, if we talk about a building or a tower, everything is an object. So you tell me, when you want to create any of this, when you want to create a car, when you want to create a phone or a builder or a building, what thing you need? Will you first create a design or you directly create an object? So the most important thing here is design. Okay, so first you design things and then you buy things. Right? Then you make things. Example, if you buy an iPhone or any Apple device, they have something written back of it, right? If you buy other devices, they will say they are made in China or made in Taiwan. But if you talk about the iPhone specifically, in the earlier days, they used to say designed in California and assembled in China. Okay, that's how they used to write it. So, what is more important, designing or assembling or manufacturing it? See, manufacturing is actually very easy. You just need machines. The energy goes for designing, and that's one of the reasons why Apple devices are costly. It's not because uh, of high speed or something. They invest so much of money in designing the phones. Okay, so that they charge you for the designing as well. And the amazing thing is, you just have to design once and produce multiple times. Example, when you talk about iPhone 13, which is going to launch, it is designed once, developed or made multiple times. Cool. So how do you create a design? Now, design is also called a blueprint. So this design is also called blueprint. Now, how do you create a design? So we can use a concept called as class in Java to design a class, to design, and to create an object, we say object. Okay, so imagine a design of a phone can be made with the help of a class, and the actual phone will be manufactured and we can call it as object. So one class can have multiple objects, object 1, object 2, object 3, and list goes on. So one class can have thousands of objects. Cool. Okay, Devendra says he's not teaching live. He just replied recording, replayed recording. That's right, Devendra. This is the comment which I have already done 3 months back. And sometimes it's difficult to prove that you're alive. Anyway, uh, where was I? I was talking about, yeah, class and object, right? Now, how do you design a class? It's very simple. So let me just remove all this stuff and let me just make it empty. So what type of class I'm going to design? Let me remove entire stuff from here. You don't need any of this. See, to design a class, what you need is, okay, so what type of class we want? See, I want to represent a real alien. Okay, so to create an alien now, so people who don't know why I refer you as alien is because not the actual alien from another planet. It's just that we are developers, right? Let me show my face. See, we are developers, right? We work in a different world. We work in a virtual world. We try to solve the real life issues with the help of a virtual world solutions. So basically, we live, we think in virtual world, and that's why we are magicians. And I call IT professionals uh, as aliens. Okay. Now, the moment you get into IT, the moment you start working on the projects, IT projects, solve real problems, you are an alien. Okay. So okay, cool. Let me just go back to my full screen mode. Okay, so let me create a class. So that's how you design a class. So you say class and you mention, let's say, alien. Okay, alien is a class here, right? Now this alien will have certain properties. Now what properties we want? Let's say every alien needs a name. So let's go for a name. So we'll say string name. Every alien needs a favorite technology to work on. We can also go with experience. But let's do that later. Let's say, yeah, let's do that experience. The number of experience you have in your current work. Okay, Devendra says, I was just checking, sir. You read it. You're like, yeah, right. That's the best way to get the attention, right? Say something bad. Okay, cool. Once we got string name, tech, and experience, we can also go for brand, which laptop you use. Of course, right? Not exactly a laptop, but you can also work on desktop or something like that. But yeah, we'll do that. Well, let's stick to laptop here. And that's why today is a Java birthday. Okay, I forgot to mention that. It was not planned because it was Java birthday, but so someone mentioned that it is Java birthday today. So happy birthday to Java. So we should have a cake cutting session later. See, if I read someone says I'm not reading comments. The only problem is the moment I read comments, I get distracted, and for to teach something, you need a flow. Okay. So let's take laptop. See, there's one reason why I'm using this laptop because in OOPS concept we have so many topics to talk about, right? And we can take this example, which makes much more sense for me. Cool. So we got all these things, and now let me create an object here. So this is a class, and as I mentioned, you can create multiple objects of one class. So let me create a class. I will say alien A1 is equal to new alien. Okay. Now, how do I create an object? Okay, let me do that once again. If I create a variable, let's say int num equal to 9. So when you create this variable, what are the steps we followed? First, you mention the type of the variable. Then you mention the name of a variable. Then you mention the value of a variable. Let me reiterate. We mention the type of variable. Then we mention the name of a variable. Then we mention uh, the value. In the same way, when you want to create an object, you first mention the type of the variable. See, ultimately, the object will be called as a variable. Again, we'll discuss that, the caveat behind it, but as of now, let's say we are doing this. So we got alien, and let me say the name of alien. We say A1, or maybe we can take any alien from the chat here, just to show that I am taking the chat. So let's say we got Serene. Okay, variable name should start with small. Serene equal to. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Serene. So then we have to mention. So this is the type of the variable, which is alien. This is the name of the variable. Next, we have to mention a new keyword. Now, why do we need a new keyword? See, think about this. In your storage, I mean, in your memory, the moment you say variable, every variable takes some space, right? Example, integer takes 4 bytes. String, depend upon the size of the string, it will take some bytes, maybe 8 bytes or 10 bytes or 20 bytes, right? Now, if you have multiple variables, of course, in your memory, you need some block where you will store all this data, right? So you will store all this data here, your name, your address, your laptop brand, and everything. And we will name this variable as Serene here. This is Serene's data. So this is the object. So this is the object of alien. It has some data, and the name of the data is Serene. Cool. Now to give that memory, to give that space, we need to use a variable. We need to use a keyword called as new. It will give you the space from the memory. But how much space you need? So we need this space for alien. So whatever data you have inside this alien, we need that much of space. So we have to say new alien, and we have to give this curly brackets. Sorry, round brackets. Now this has a special meaning. Okay, this means constructor. Again, we'll talk about constructor later, but we'll discuss that. Okay, so thank you so much, Furkan, for the super chat. Always helpful. Okay, so this is how you create an object. Okay, now this is an object variable name, and this is the alien. Now let's me just assign the value. So you can see we don't have values to it, right? We don't have value to name, tech, experience, and laptop. So let's assign the values. So we'll say Serene dot. I will assign the value to name, and I will assign the name as, of course, Serene itself, Serene Kumar, if I'm not wrong. And then Serene dot tech. What's your favorite technology? I'm assuming it's Java, so I will do that. And I'm also assuming that you are a fresher. So I will give the experience as 1. And then I believe your laptop brand is HP. I'm not sure which laptop you use, but let me say HP. Okay, so that's how you do it, right? So you assign all the values here. Cool. Okay, thank you, Ratan Ram, for the super chat. Okay, Smith official says birthday की party कब है? यही तो चल रहा है. This is a birthday party for Java. Okay, cool. So we have assigned all the values, right? Now this object, Serene, initially the values were blank, but then now we have assigned the values, right? So it should work. Now I can simply print one value. So I can say, I want to fetch the laptop brand of Serene. So I can say Serene.laptop. A dot is an operator which you have to use to refer to a particular property, right? Okay. So we got a value which we got. We should get laptop HP brand here. So let's run this code and let's see what happens. So you can see we got HP here. So this is working, right? But then what if I want to perform some methods here? Now, what are methods? See, as an alien, you know something and you do something, right? Every object in this world knows something and does something. Example, let me talk about this remote. Okay, this is a remote here. This is AC remote. It knows something, it does something. Now, what you know about this remote? So this is a remote, white color remote. It has some buttons on it. It has a shape. It's glossy, and it has a light here, infrared light. So this is what you know. These are the properties of an object. But then what it does, it changes the temperature of the room, right? It also yeah, it changes the temperature of a room. Then if it doesn't work, you just, you know, so what's the best thing you do? So example, if this stopped working now, what I will do? What is your guess? How do I start it work? Of course, the ideal way is to remove this battery and change it. But in India, or in most of the places, what we do is we smash it, right? And that's how it works. But then every object knows something, every object does something. So as a human or as an alien, you know something and you do something. So you know something with the help of variables, right? This is your data. But you can also do something with the help of methods. How do you define a method? So let's say you are a programmer, you want to write a code, right? You want to write a code. So you will say public. How do you define a method? So you have to say public. Public means access, from where you can access this. I want it to be accessed from anywhere, so we'll say public. Then you have to mention the return type. Will this method return anything? As of now, I don't want to return anything, so I will say void. And then I will mention what you do. Let's say I want to make project. Okay. So when you say make project, you can simply open the curly brackets. And here, with your technology, with your laptop, of course, you need a machine to type a code, right? Of course, you simply imagine stuff and say, hey, now this is my output. You need a machine. Uh, so what I will do is I will just use this. I will add a code. So I will say writing code in IntelliJ. I mean, of course, this should be a complex code here, but just to keep it simple, I'm just printing a statement. So, Sarin, once you got your laptop, you also need to write a code. So, I will say Sarin dot make project. Okay, and now if you run this code, you can see we got writing code intelligent. So, basically, these are properties and these are methods. So, every class will have some variables and it will have some methods, not one, two, we can have multiple methods, right? Now it's time for doubt solving session, right? Let me just get me on full screen. Okay, anyone any doubt so that I can hear that? Uh, Behavior or state, that's right, we can say that. So methods are behavior and data, the properties are state. Every language, every technology have a different naming convention, but in Java we say properties and methods. You can also say behavior and state. And that's right, this is how you repair your remotes, TV remotes, AC remote, everything. Okay, any more questions? So we are moving towards, so yeah, we'll talk about constructors as well, and we'll talk about why we call interface. Yeah, we'll talk about interface as well. So we still have 2 hours. We can cover those topics as well. Sure. Now it's time for a break. This is 4:50. We'll come back at 5. So we have a break time of 10 minutes. So your break starts Okay, so I'm back. I hope I'm audible. It's just that I just faced a power failure in my area. So now I'm running on UPS. I don't know how far I can take this session. Things are not going in my way today. And as I mentioned before, there's no water, there's no electricity now. At least internet is working. Thanks so much for that. Oh, things are not going in my way. Let me share my screen. I hope you enjoyed your break. Let me share this screen. Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, just a second. Let me just increase the fan speed. It's getting hot here. The problem is I'm actually surrounded with all the lights, which create a lot of heat, and that's why I need AC. But now AC is also not working, so I have to rely on fan, which works on UPS. Okay, cool. Now what we'll do is, so yeah, so we talked about it, right? So every class will have a variable, and we have some methods, right? Okay, cool. That's how you can call a method. That's how you can assign the values. But then there's another way of assigning a value. Okay, but before that, let's talk about this thing. What is this thing? What do you mean by alien and round brackets? Now, alien and round bracket here is called a constructor. Now, what's a constructor? So imagine constructor same as method. Okay, the difference is constructor has some special properties. So I will write those properties here. Constructor is similar to methods, but there are certain differences. First, you don't need to call a constructor. Okay, it will be getting called automatically. Examples for methods, you have to call them. Okay, example here, if you can see, we are calling a method. For the constructor, you don't have to call it. Okay, next, constructor will have the same name as class name. So whatever your class name is, that should be same as as the name of the constructor. Anything else? Yeah, that's it. So let's try. Let's create a constructor. Now, by doing this definition, by following this definition, we can create a constructor. So we'll say public. Oh, there's one more thing. Constructor never returns anything. So I will say public. Now, since we don't have to return anything, so you don't have to mention a return type here. We can simply use a constructor name which is alien, and let's print something. Let's print in alien. Okay, so basically we are just printing in alien, right? Now, if you can look at this code, I'm not actually calling a constructor, but if you run this code, this constructor will be called automatically. Just look at that. Okay, there is one more thing. Please please hit that like button if you are enjoying this live session. I forgot to mention that before. If you enjoy the live sessions, please hit that like button. Okay, cool. So we got a constructor here, right? So constructor gets called automatically. So if you see the output here, we got in alien. Cool. That's your constructor. But is it compulsory to have only one constructor? We can create more constructors here. So we can say public alien. But why do we have to create multiple constructors? Example, I have two constructors here. But if you have two constructors looking the same way, this will have an issue, right? It will get confused which one to call. So we can have two constructors, but you have to make sure that you have a different parameter. So here we can pass a parameter. So we can say this constructor takes, maybe I can say int experience. Now look at both the constructors. One is not taking any parameter. this is called a parameter here. So whatever you accept, so whatever your parameter you accept, whatever variables you accept here is called a parameter. Okay, so I will say in alien para. Okay, I know that's a weird, but let's say int para. So we are mentioning that in a different way. Okay, so we are saying this is a default one, this is a parameterized one. So this is called a parameterized constructor, and this one here is called a default constructor. Cool. Okay, will this work? Let's try. So even if this work, which one will it will call? Will it call both the constructor or only one constructor, and which one? So you can type that answer in the chat window. Let me run this code, and you can see we got in alien. That means it is calling the default constructor. Why it is not calling second constructor? Is because if you observe while creating this object, let me just reduce the number of spaces in between so that we'll get more space. Yeah. So if you look at this object, when you create this object, you are not passing any parameter, right? But what if you pass a parameter? Let's say the number of experience is 3. In this case, if you pass the number of parameters, you can see we got in alien int para. So the moment you pass a parameter, it will specifically print that constructor, not both, only one. So when you have multiple constructors, someone just mentioned that. Thank you so much for reminding. This concept is called constructor overloading. So when you have multiple constructors with different parameters, we call them as constructor overloading. Cool, everyone? Okay, awesome. Now I just want to do one more thing. So what we'll do is time when I will remove this method so that we can actually see the entire code what we are working on. Okay, so we got it, right? We got alien and we got alien, and then we are passing a parameter. Cool. We can create multiple constructors, right? So let me remove this one as well. We know what is constructor and how can we write multiple constructors. The next thing is I want to create a alien object by passing all these values. You can see that we wasted 4 lines just to assign the values. What if we can simply create a constructor here? We can say alien, which takes all these values. I mean, the first variable is name. I will say string n, comma, string t, comma, int e, which is experience, and then string l for laptop. And then whatever value you received from the constructor will be assigned to a specific variable. So name is equal to n. Now from where I'm getting this name, you can see here we got a name, right? We got all these variables. Let me just remove this part as well. So name is coming from n, tech is coming from t, and experience is coming from e, and the laptop L is coming from. Oh, sorry, laptop is coming from L, right? Okay, cool. So what we are doing is we are taking these values from the constructor and assigning to the variables here. Now there are 2 types of variables which you can see here. One is called a local variable. Now the same concept is available in other languages as well. We call them as local variables and global variables. In Java, we call them as local variables and instance variables. Now why we use a word called as instance here. Now example, let's say if we talk about my favorite phone which I have with me, let me show you that. Okay, now this is my favorite phone. I bought this phone in 2016. It's been 5 years, okay, and this is iPhone. It's still working. Yeah, there's a crack on the screen. But then if you talk about this phone, this is one instance of iPhone phone, right? iPhone 6s. In this world, we have millions of iPhone devices, iPhone 6s, right? This is one instance. So one object means one instance. So you can use two vocabulary here. Either you can call it as instance or you can call it as object. Technically, it is called as instance, so we'll call it as instance itself. And that's right. We can also call it as a member variable, instance variable, member variable. Yeah. So we can have a local variable and an instance variable. Now, in this case, when you say you are passing these values, this is a local variable. This thing here, they are instance variable. Now, how do you differentiate between these two? So when you create a variable inside a block, example, this is a constructor, this can be a method as well. So this is called a local variable. The variables here, they are called instance variable. So what you're doing is you're taking the value from the local variable and assigning them to the instance variable. And look at the color difference. IntelliJ helps you with this as well. This is in a different color. And since I'm colorblind, I don't know what color you can see on your screen. And this is a local variable here. And look at this color. This is in black color, right? Okay, so we are assigning this value to the instance variable. But then what? Okay, will this work? Let's try. Let's try. The problem is we are not even passing those values. So let's not pass the values from here. We will pass these values from here. But this time we'll take a different object. Who is active now? So we have someone who is called, let's say, Dhruv. So we got a new alien Dhruv, and let's pass all the values here. The first value is name. So let me pass Dhruv as a name. Then we are passing the favorite technology. I guess Dhruv love washing hands. So I will say, okay, let's go for JavaScript. And then what next we have to specify? We have to specify the experience, right? Let's say 2 years of JavaScript experience. And there's one more, which is the laptop. Let's say you use Lenovo. Okay, so what we are doing is we are creating a Dhruv object by passing all these values. Now you tell me which constructor it will call. Will it call the default constructor or the second constructor? Okay, Dhruv got a HP laptop. Let's do that. Let's mention HP. Okay, let's save this and run. And you can see we got nothing. You know why we got nothing is because we are not printing anything in the second constructor. But we know it is calling that second constructor now. Okay, once you have assigned all the value, let's try to print one variable or one value. So let's say I want to print the favorite technology of Dhruv. Let's run this code. And you can see we got the output as JavaScript. Cool. Okay, that's how you can create an object by using different types of constructors. Okay, what next? So we have talked about constructors. We have talked about this. Yeah, there's one more. This is the topic which you're going for is actually very interesting. So please concentrate. I need your full concentration. If you can see the variable name, we have n, we have t. So whatever data you're passing from here, this roof is actually going to this n variable, and then it is getting assigned to this name variable. Then this JavaScript here, whatever you're passing, that variable goes to this t, and then it is getting assigned to tech. Then you are passing 2, which goes to e, and that is getting assigned to exp and so on. But now, what if I want to go with the same name? Let's say name, let's say tech, let's say experience, and here we are going for laptop. So if you can see, we are going for the exact same names. So of course here also we have to mention name, here also we have to mention tech, here we have to say experience, and we'll say laptop. Okay. So let's run this code and let's see what happens. What do you think? Will it work? If you try to print the tech of Dhruv, will it be assigned? Let's try. And the moment you run this code, okay, 26 line number, we are not using this number anymore, so let's remove that. Someone mentioned about that. Okay, so you can see we got null. Now what is null? Null is the value. So by default, all this variable has a null value. But now when you run this code, Dhruv, even if you assigned JavaScript, it is giving you null. Why? The reason is, look at the colors. Look at the colors. Whenever you work with instance variables, they are always in different color, right? They are always in which color is that? Is it purple or violet? I'm not sure, but it's a different color. Local variables are in black color, and you can see the confusion here. Everything is black. So you are actually assigning the values, but to itself. And there should be a suggestion here as well. Okay, IntelliJ is not suggesting it. There should be a suggestion that you are assigned to itself. We have to say, oh, the light is back finally. Oh, now I can enjoy some cool air. So we have to mention, hey, this name variable is not local. This is a local variable. This is a local variable. This is a local variable. But this one is not a local variable. This is an instance variable. Now, how do you mention instance variable? It's very simple. You can say, hey, this one belongs to an object. And for that, we have to use a keyword called as this. This represents the current object. So everywhere we have to mention this. And look at the color variable colors now. It is getting converted into again purple. So this simply means the current instance. Okay. And let's run this code and let's see what happens. And you can see we got JS. So this is working. This is working, right? So that's the importance of this keyword. Okay, what next? Now, once you understood this keyword, it's time to go forward with another concept. Okay. The next concept is access modifiers. See, from start we are talking about public, right? But apart from public, what other data type, what other modifiers we have? So basically we have private, we have public, we have protected, so we can use all. But then for data, what should we use? Now to understand that, let me take an example here. So I want a volunteer. In fact, I will just invite someone who want to be on this screen. Let me know. I will just get you on this screen, and you have to be volunteer. I will ask you some questions. You have to answer that quickly. If you are a shy person, don't come online. Okay. If you are open for fun, you can join me in this live session so that we can have some fun. So I've sent you the link in the chat. And we got Shravan. Shravan, your camera is on. Yes, your camera is on. Hey, hi, Shravan. Can you hear me? Okay, Shravan just left over. Okay, let me get Mayank. Camera is on. Yes, your Mayank was there last time. No? Hey, hi, Shravan. Can you hear me? So, Mayank, I have a question for you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, Shravan. So I will ask you some rapid questions and you have to answer that. Okay, let me get.
Okay.
Mayank. Camera is on. Yes, your Mayank was there last time. Okay,
No,
the problem is I can hear myself. Let me just connect my headphones. Okay. Mayank, say something.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Cool.
Okay.
So Mayank, I will ask you some questions, and you have to answer that very, very quickly. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's your name?
Mayank
Where do you stay?
in Gurgaon.
Okay. Well, who is your favorite actor?
Amir Khan,
Who is your favorite trainer or teacher?
trainer, teacher. He's my school teacher. His name is
Oh,
Sanjay.
oh, I thought you will say my name. Okay, okay. At least in live you should have mentioned my name. But that's fine. That's fine. What is name? Your favorite teacher?
Sanjay Kumla.
Oh, that's awesome.
He
Uh,
was actually
who
currently.
do you have a Facebook account?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your Facebook password?
Why should I tell you?
Okay. Now that's the thing. Whatever
Okay.
data you have here, whatever I'm asking Mayank, he's giving all the answers, right? But the moment I ask any private question, he stopped it. Maybe if I ask his girlfriend name, he will say, "Why should I tell you?" If I ask about your bank balance, he will say, What should I tell you?" Right? So there are some data which has to be private. In fact, I believe every data should be private. Thank you, Mang. Thank you for coming on this screen. Thank you for being so
Welcome,
wonderful.
welcome, sir, welcome. Thank you so much, sir, for taking.
Okay, thank you, Mayank. So yeah, what I was saying is, whenever you work with data, you have to make sure that your all the data should be private. Okay, don't keep your data public. Never, never do that. So what I will do now is, where was I? Yeah. So whatever data you have here should be private. But you will say, hey, why name has to be private? Even name has to be private, right? So when you go somewhere, when you meet some people, you directly don't see their names in their brain, right? You ask them. The only way you can get the data about someone is by asking them. They have to talk about it, right? Don't behave like Facebook. Don't steal the data. Make sure that you have all your data as a private one. So we'll say private. Make sure that all your data is private. And the only way to fetch this data, let me just do that. So the only way to fetch this data is using something. So what is that something? So if I ask everyone, who is your favorite actor? Okay, so just comment that, because I will not ask for favorite trainers. I was expecting my name, but you will not do that. So who is your favorite actor? Mention that in a chat window. Okay. So do I know your favorite actor? Of course not. I have to ask you, and the only way you can tell me is by saying it or by typing it, right? That's your behavior. So you will give the data by behaving. Okay, I'm not sharing my screen. So the only thing which I changed here is I have made all these variables as private. Okay, so just before the variables, mention private. So how do I fetch? How do I fetch this data? Okay, so you can see a lot of answers here. Alu Arjun, yeah, my favorite. Kamal Hassan, Mahesh Babu, Vijay, that's great. Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg left the chat. Okay, cool. Ritik Roshan, awesome. So we have all these favorite actors, right? Now here, if I want to fetch this data, I have to ask you. So in Java, if you want to fetch data, it has to be done with the help of methods. That's the only way you can fetch the data. So what we will do is we'll use methods. So I can say public. Methods should be public, of course, right? That's how you can refer. Public. But then when you want to return, I want to return my name, right? So I will say public void get name. That's how you can fetch the value, get name. Okay. Now, why do we need this method here? Is because if you go back, in fact, why name? Let's say here itself. If I say Dhruv.name, you can see I'm not able to access that. It is giving me error. It says name is a private access. It's a private field. You can't access it. So that's the issue, right? It will not work. Now, the way you can make it work is by using a method called as get name. So instead of saying name, we can say get name, right? So we can fetch the value. But the problem is when you want this get name to return something, you have to mention the type of it. So this get name will return something. It will return a string. The methods which we used till now they were not returning anything. Okay, so we'll mention string here and we'll say return name. Okay, let's run this code and let's see what happens. Will this work? So I'm not fetching directly from the variable name, I'm fetching with the help of a method. So when I say get name, it will give me a name, Dhruv. Cool. Okay, awesome. Now what next? So once we got get name, we can do it for all the methods. What about setting the variables? Of course, we can't set the data now here. Example, in future, Loop says, hey, I don't want to work with JavaScript anymore. I want to work on, let's say, Java. So you will say Dhruv dot. Dhruv, you are changing your technology from JavaScript to Java. But you can say this will not work. You know why? It's because the tech variable is a private variable. You can't access it from outside. So in this case, what you will do is you will remove this. So we will be using a method called setter. So we'll say public void set name. So get name, set name makes sense, right? Method name can be anything, but we are going for this convention. And in set name, you have to pass the variable. So we'll say string n. And here we can say name is equal to n. Cool. But then don't you think it should be the same variable name? Why to go for multiple variable name? It will be confusion and the issue. Okay, but there's a problem. We have to use something here before the name. We have to say this dot name because this variable here refers to the instance variable. This one here refers to the local variable. Okay. Yeah, I know. We are more into the revision mode now. So if you're a complete beginner, there might be something going above your head. The only thing is, even if you don't understand everything, just try to get the concepts. And when you watch the video, it will make much more sense. So what we are doing is whatever data you are getting here in the name is getting assigned to the instance variable. Now let's run this code and let's see if this works. Oh, we are not even setting the value. So we'll say Dhruv set name. Or we are changing the name of Dhruv. Dhruv, your new name is I don't know, Dhruva. Just for example here. Yeah, any upcoming session on Python? Upcoming Python session? Let's try. Let's try next week. Okay, you can see we got a new name which is Dhruva. Cool. So we are changing only name and we are fetching name, right? What about other variables? So we have to type multiple methods for all the variables. Basically, this variables or these methods here are called getters and setters. And right, next week, next week if you do Python, it will look much more simpler than Java. Okay, once you know Java, it's easier to learn JavaScript or Python or any other language. Okay, so you can see we got these methods. Now these are called getters and setters. So instead of typing this, I don't want to type all these method names here. How much method you will type? So basically, this is where Eclipse says, hey, don't worry, I will help you. So when you right click here, you can see this option of generate. So let's click on generate and say getters and setters for all the variables and click on OK. Now this will give you all the variables, all the methods for all the variables. Cool. Now you don't have to type it. Let's run this code. In fact, you can change the values of anything now. You can also change the tech for Dhruv. You can move it from uh, JavaScript to Java, and let's fetch get. So for setting the value, we'll use set methods. For getting the value, we'll use get methods. Okay, cool, right? Okay, what we will do now is let's take a small break. I'm actually feeling thirsty. My bottle is empty here. So let me refill my bottle and we'll continue after 10 minutes. So this is the early break we are taking. After break, we'll take a doubt solving session and then we'll continue with the session. Uh, Feeling very tired. Okay, so I'm back. Oh, I was feeling so tired. This is the first time I'm doing a 6 hour session, right? Of course, we had a break in between, but I was having some other work. Anyway, let's try. Next time we'll optimize it for 4 hours, maybe. 4 hours, 4 hour looks good. So now let's go back to our code. So where were we? We were talking about the constructors, right? So yeah, we have talked about getters and setters. Now, whenever you have your variables private, okay, whenever you have your variables private and you have all these getters and setters for it, this concept is called encapsulation. So basically, you create a variable and you have a getter setters for it. So make all the variables as private, and the only way to access them is with the help of getters and setters. So for that, we can use. So this concept is called encapsulation. Cool. Okay. What next? Oh, there was a dot solving session, right? So let's talk about a dot solving session. Let me just take some questions who have any doubts. So any questions you have? Let me just pick some questions on the screen. Any questions? Okay. Now the question is, when you have both the options, right? So you can assign the values with the help of parameters. We have done that, right? So you can also assign the value with the help of a constructor, a parameterized constructor, and you can also use setters. So which is better? See, whenever you have a variable and you have all the properties which has to be assigned compulsory, then you have to go for constructor. But if you think there are certain properties which you can assign later, for that you should use setters. Example, I want to assign tech and name. So those are the compulsory variables I have to assign. So what you can do is, while creating the object, you can set this to, because of course, right, whenever you talk about alien, alien has a name and the favorite technology. But then the experience and technology or the laptop, we can take it later. So once you assign the values with the help of a constructor, you can assign the experience by saying experience, let's say 2 years, and roof dot set laptop will say HP. So we can assign these two values later. Oh, okay, I'm not showing that. Okay. So you can see I've did that. So I removed these two things from the constructor and assigned them in the set. Okay. The next question is from Ankit, and the question is, what is toString method does? In fact, that was our for next topic, so we can talk about it. Okay. Is encapsulation is only for individual class? Yes, every class has to be it should be in an encapsulated format. So we have variables and then we have methods to access them. Okay, can you explain clearly about static and non-static, that when we will use this? In fact, what I feel now is I cannot go beyond 6:30 today, or maybe even 6:15. I know I talked about we can take it for 7, but I don't want to take this session just because I have to take it. Right? I need energy to actually talk about the concepts. What we can do is we can end this session by 6:15 somewhere, and then we'll take one more session during the week so that whatever topics I wanted to cover, we can do that at least. So somewhere around Wednesday or Thursday, we can take another session. But and that will be in the evening time so that everyone can join. Uh, so we'll talk about those things there. Okay, let me just start with the topic. The next topic we have is, okay, let's go with the flow itself. So what is encapsulation? Encapsulation for a class means you have private variables, and to access them, you need getters and setters. Okay. Let me remove this, and yeah, we have talked about encapsulation, right? The next thing I want to focus here is, let me also remove the constructor for time being. Let me remove all this weird stuff for time being. Let me just talk about another class. Let's not focus more on alien now. Let's focus on something else. Okay, let's talk about a simple concept, which is of computer. Let me create a class here, and let's say this class is laptop. Okay. Now, of course, a laptop, or maybe I can just use a simple one, which is calculator, just to make it more simple. Let's say a calculator. Every calculator have certain features, right? Of course, every calculator will have two numbers, so you can take two variables there. But here, what I will do is I will create a calculator by saying this calculator can perform multiple functions. Example, I will say this performs a operation of adding two numbers. So we'll say public int add. Now, why I said int is because it will return the addition of two numbers. It will also accept two values. I will say int x. I will say num1, comma num2. So we got these two variables, and then what I will do is I want to return the addition of these two. So I will say num1 plus num2. Simple stuff, right? Okay, where's the banner for this? Let me create a banner. So the topic which we are discussing now is actually inheritance. So that's the banner. Okay. So you can see we got a class, and then the method name is add, which takes two values, and then we are adding them, right? Okay. Clever coder says, sir, Delhi live आया करो. अरे मर जाऊंगा मैं किसी दिन Delhi live आऊंगा तो. But I will try to come as soon as possible. Cool. So we are adding two numbers, right? How do I call that method? So to call the method, we need to create the object of calc. And now we know how to create an object of calc, right? So we can say calc, we'll say obj equal to new calc. The object name can be anything, right? And now let's call the method add. So when you call this method add by saying obj.add, you have to pass two parameters, right? Let's say 6 and 2. So we are passing these two values. And this has to be stored somewhere. So let's say I will store this in an int variable, which is int result. So what we are doing is we are creating the object of calc, and then we are calling this method add, which is adding those two values, and then we are assigning that to a result variable. And then we'll print the value which is result. Simple stuff, right? Nothing fancy. We are doing the same thing which we have done earlier. So let's run this code, and you can see we got 8. So this is working, right? But now what I'm going to do is, this calculator provides you only one function. What if I want to add 3 numbers? Can we do that? So we'll do that later, but before that I have one more thing. In fact, let me just change the banner. I just want to add one more thing here. Let's first talk about method overloading. So we'll talk about inheritance in some time, but let's talk about method overloading, and then we'll move towards inheritance. Okay, so now we have this calculator, right? Let's create, I want to have some more features. I want to add 3 numbers. What if I pass 6 to 4? Can we add 2 numbers? So in this case, what I will do here is I will create another method which can take 3 parameters, because the method which we created only accepts 2 parameters. So we'll say num1 comma int num2 comma int num3. So we got these 3 variables, and then we'll say return num1 plus num2 plus num3. Okay, so we got these 2 methods, right? And you can see If you pass 3 parameters, it will call this method. If you pass only 2 parameters, it will call the method which has 2 parameters. So these two methods has the same name. You can see we have add and add. So we got two methods, both are add, but what the difference is they have two different, one has 2 parameters and second one has 3 parameters. So this is called method overloading because we have two methods with the same name but different parameters. So if I run this code, it should work. So 6 plus 2 plus 4 is 12 and it should give 12. That's right. So we got the answer. Cool. Okay, what next we can do here? We can have more methods like add with 5 parameters, 10 parameters, and still it is called method overloading. Cool. So what is method overloading? In a class, if you have two methods with the same name but different parameters, it is called method overloading. Now let's go back to inheritance. So what I will do is I will just remove this second method here because we don't need that. So imagine you are adding two numbers and it is working. But in future, if you feel, hey, I want to get a new calculator which can have two features. It can add, it can subtract. So let me get another class here and we'll name this class as let's say calc. Let's say this calculator is built by Mayank. So I will say this is Mayank calc. So Mayank, it is your responsibility to create uh, a calculator which can add two numbers and we can also subtract two numbers. So what we can do is we can say public. So what you will do, Mayank? Will you create two methods or one method? See, logically we should create two methods, right? One is add and one is subtract. But don't you think the addition method is already there in the first class, which is calc? So when I talk about iPhone, in every new version of iPhone, what you get is new features, but it has all the old features as well. So it is all old features plus new features. In the same way, when you have a calc here and when you have Mayank calc, so Mayank, you don't have to actually create both the methods. You just need to create one method which is subtract by accepting two values, which is num1 and int num2. And here will return num1 minus num2. That's it. But then Mayank, in your class, you will be having only one method, right? You will not be having both the methods. So in this case, what you can do is you can say, hey, let me just copy the features from calc. Let me show you. Let me create object of Mayank calc here. So both the object is of Mayank calc. And you can see the moment I use Mayank calc to call add, it's not working. You know why? Because in Mayank calc, we don't have this method add. So what to do? So Mayank will say, hey, let me get a calculator by extending the existing calculator. Now this concept where you are extending the features of the old class is called inheritance. Cool. So in inheritance, what you do is you get all the features from the above class, from this class. Okay. Uh, so once you got this thing, you can see we are able to add as well. So there's no error now. Let's run this code to see what is happening. So this concept is called inheritance. Okay, Mayank is fetching all the features from calculator. Okay. Can we have more here? Can we have class? Let's say someone else want to get a new calculator. Let's say we have Rahul. Rahul MS wants to create a new calculator. But then when Rahul creates a new calculator, Rahul, you want three features. You want multiplication as well. So what can be done here? So you can say return num1 into num2. But then Rahul, you will be having only one method, right? So what can be done? If I create your object here, Rahul object, it will have only one method. How will I get all the methods? Okay, there's a question from Ritu, and the question is, what about method overriding? We'll talk about that later once we'll see if we can do that today. Yeah, let's also try method overloading. But before that, Rahul only has one method. How to do that? So Rahul, you have to extend calc. But the problem is, if Rahul you're extending only calc, you will get only two methods: the add and multiplication. You will not get subtraction because subtraction is taken by Mayank. Okay, so what you can do is you can take Mayank calc. So when you extend Mayank calc, you will get all the features. Okay, yeah. So the child class get all the features from the parent class. Okay, so basically we have talked about inheritance. We have talked about uh, so this is multi-level. Okay, so we have calc, we have Mayank calc, and we have Rahul calc. This is multi-level inheritance. So if you have two classes, that is single level. When you have a chain of classes, class here, class there, that is multi-level. What if you have okay? So there's a question for everyone. Can we have one class extending two classes? In fact, I will not be talking about that in this video. So what you can do is watch a video. There's a separate video talking about multiple inheritance. Why Java does not support multiple inheritance? Okay, I used to take a batch of 8 hours for corporate. I still do that, but teaching more than 3 hours on YouTube, I don't know why I'm feeling so tired today. So we'll talk about one last topic and then we are done. Okay, I'm very tired. So this is inheritance where we can get all the features. But what if Mayank, you want to say, hey, I don't want Rahul to use my class. You can do that, okay? So you can say this is final. Sorry, not here. So you can say this is final. So when you make your method final, no one can extend it. Example, let's say if I create the object of Rahul calc, and this one is also Rahul calc. And if Rahul calc tries to call sub, oh sorry, my bad. If you want to stop the inheritance, so since I'm so tired, I'm not able to think properly now. If you want Rahul to not get your features, you can make it final. So when you make a class final, no one can extend it. Okay. So that's one. So that's one use of final. Again, there are more use of final. We'll talk about that later. Okay, now Rahul has three methods, right? Rahul has addition, subtraction, and multiplication. And in subtraction, there's a problem here. If you pass two values, let's say 6 and 8, in this case, what you will get is negative value. Right. So you can say we got negative value. So what Rahul thought is, hey, subtraction is good, but then I don't want the way it is happening in Mayank's class. I don't want negative value. So what Rahul will do is Rahul say, okay, public int sub. He will create its own sub method, which is a subtraction method, by taking these two values. And he will find the subtraction num1 minus num2. Okay, but what I want to do a mod of it. How do I do a mod? And I forgot the method name. Okay, that's weird. Any guess? How do I How do I convert a negative number to a positive number? Forgot the method name. Is it? Okay. It's very tiring. Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I'm not on full screen. So sorry. So what I did is I just made some changes here, which is Rahul want to have its own method here. Let's try this floor mod. It should work. Okay. Yeah, but then floor mod should take subtraction as well. So first we have to subtract these two. The math is a class which has multiple features. Okay. Floor division. No, I don't want to do floor division. I don't want to. I want to subtract, right? Do we have a subtract exact? Okay, let's use this one by passing two values, num1, comma num2. Let's see what it does. We're still giving negative value. Okay, let's do that. Let's say Rahul want to subtract but a different way. So Rahul, what Rahul doing is, let me just print something here. I will print Rahul sub, and I will print not Rahul sub. This is Mayank sub. Let me copy, and I'm sure this is the last topic. I can't take it anymore. Need rest. Okay. Yeah. So we are saying Rahul sub, and now oh, you have to say absolute to the output. Okay. Okay. We can try that. So if you run this code, you can see it will print Rahul sub. It's printing here. So you can see we got Rahul sub. We don't want that. We want it to be Mayank sub. So if Mayank, if we don't want Rahul, so what is happening here is this method is hiding the properties of this method is actually hiding the behavior of the old method. So this is method overriding. So this method here overrides the method of a superclass. So Mayank is a superclass here, and Rahul class is a subclass. Okay. In fact, we'll expand this in the next session. Okay. So I just need to stop this session. I can't take it anymore. Feeling very tired. Entire body is paining. So, long day, Sunday. So don't worry. We'll take this session. We'll take one more session coming in this week itself. And I enjoyed actually. I enjoyed this session a lot. Looking at all these concurrent users, it's fascinating. How many people can join one live session? Cool. So this is the first time I'm actually teaching to more than 50,000 people. Okay, so this live, crazy, crazy. Okay, so that's it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this session. We'll connect again next week. Oh, sorry, this week. We'll continue this topic. At least we'll try to finish collections. Let's see if we can do that. So that's it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Hit that like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe for further videos. Bye bye. So till then, enjoy this.